games, I want the bread first. I want a meal, so I'm putting in leg work. Told your bitch.
What's up? I'm Freeway Rick Ross. This is my autobiography. Tune in to reality313radio.com.
Hello everybody, how you doing today? Welcome to Kelly's Kitchen on reality313radio.com. Before we get into our special guest we have here, I definitely want to give a large shout out to B.I for welcoming us out there to California for the awards. And we're going to go a little bit more depth into that later on. But right now I would like to bring a special guest to the station, to the desk here with me right now, the one and only Freeway Rick Ross. How you doing, bro?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, bro. How you doing today?
I'm glad to be here. Well. I'm a little tired, but
okay.
Well.
But you looking good. You here, my dude.
No doubt.
Before we get into this amazing book right here and what you got going on, why don't you give our viewers and listeners a little bit feedback into who Freeway Rick Ross is?
Well, I grew up in South Central L.A. Was an aspiring tennis player. When it was time for me to graduate from high school, it was discovered that I couldn't read or write.
Okay.
So that pretty much ended my dreams of becoming a tennis star, because I couldn't go to college and I didn't have the money to go on the pro circuit. So I went to the streets.
Okay.
Went to the streets. I started with $125. Took the $125. I had days. My last 2 years, I made at least $1 million a day, and I had days that I made as much as $3 million. Got arrested. Went to prison. Was looking at a life sentence without the possibility of parole. Taught myself to read and write, and reversed that sentence. And when I was there, I started writing this book.
Wow. Now, during your time of incarceration, how did you teach yourself? And did you get assistance from anybody while you was in there? Yeah,
I had other inmates to help me.
Okay.
One of my cellies was the main one to. He made me my cue cards with my ABCs on them.
Okay.
He started showing me how to sound my ABCs out. So he gave me a lot of inmates gave me a lot of assistance though.
Okay. Now, how did you find out that there was a loophole in the system, and you knew that you had a case and a chance of getting out? Well,
I didn't know for a while. It took. I think I had been in jail about 5 years before I eventually got my case reversed.
Okay.
So it took a while. It wasn't like, I got to jail and a month later I found a loophole. It wasn't like that, no. I went to trial, lost in trial, 12 juries, witnesses, 2-week trial. My trial lasted 2 weeks, testimony every day. Then I was found guilty, got a life sentence, was sent off to the penitentiary, and that's when I discovered my issue.
Okay. Now, how long did it take for your case to finally get a new trial, and how hard was it?
Well, after I found the issue, and then it took about 18 months before the appeals court reversed my case. And then it took about 3 years after they reversed it before I actually got the life sentence off of me. Even though I knew I was going to get the life sentence off of me, it was still on me, basically. In my record, it said, life without the possibility of parole.
Right.
Even though I knew that wasn't going to be there, because the appeals court had already ruled that I shouldn't have gotten a life, and that I think they said 22 years was the most I should have got.
Okay. What do you see different now with the system that's going on now with the system, how the system is structured now to how it was then back in the early 80s?
Well, the difference now is that the drug of choice is heroin, right, and that there's the majority of the participants are white, suburban kids. So they're handling it a little different. Now it's considered an epidemic and instead of a criminal. So I think that that's probably the biggest difference. And you know, with the difference between cocaine and heroin is with heroin you can OD.
Right.
I've never known anybody to OD on cocaine, smoking cocaine, rock cocaine. And I could be wrong, you know, with me and my personal experience, I've never seen anybody that had OD'd on it.
Right.
So, the way that they were treating crack cocaine was vicious criminals. I think Hillary Clinton said we were super predators or something like that.
Right.
So it's just a difference, you know, when they're dealing with black and white. You know,
Yes, it is.
It's two justice systems. When I went to trial, you know, I had an all-white jury. My lawyer did bring it up to the judge. The judge's rectification was to bring another jury pool in. But the way the system is fixed, it really didn't do any good to bring another jury pool in because you pick from the same 50 people, and then before you can get out of 50, you only get 3 strikes from jurors, and before you can get to another 50, all your strikes are gone, and so those are the jurors that you had to use. But even in both jury pools, there was only one black person in the whole pool. You know, the federal court, they don't pick from people with driver's license from DMV.
Right.
Their pool come from voters registration, which is, you know, we don't vote.
Right. Now, do you think how corrupt the system is now, do you think that there should be some type of committee put together to overlook certain cases now where people are getting more time than they should be?
Well, we should have been had that in. I mean, we should have been had an oversight committee just for jails.
Right.
You know, we should have people from the community go into the jails and inspect the jails to see how they run. You look at like this here. Taxpayers are paying $48,000 a year to keep a person in prison or in jail. You would think that with this $48,000, that there's some type of rehabilitation. That some of this money is going toward making sure that when this person gets out of prison, that they're not in the worse position than they was when they came.
Correct.
Because my personal belief is that poverty is the root of crime. You know, people with money don't go out and rob.
Correct.
It's usually somebody who needs something that money will buy, and they go out and try to get that.
Of course. That's not just a problem here in Detroit. I think that's a problem across this country.
And especially with young black men, you know, we're the most unemployed in the U.S. It's at an all-time high, and I believe that it's even higher than the statistics. I don't have the exact numbers right off the top of my head, but I believe that the statistics are even higher because so many black men have been beat down by the system to the point to where they don't even go to unemployment and register as unemployed. They just drop out the system altogether for years and years and years. So they say that our unemployment rate is high, but I believe it's even higher than what they're even saying that it is.
Yeah, and I also think that a lot of it has to do with what you said earlier is the importance of education, you know, which will help if we know and have them tools in our community, you know. To go into this book, where did you get inspired from this beautiful book right here, man?
Well, when I was in prison and I had my life sentence and I didn't know if I was going to ever get out, it was during the same time that they was killing Tookie Williams.
Right.
I knew Tookie growing up. He was somebody that I admired. And I thought, wow, if Tookie could do a book, I could do a book too.
Correct.
Tookie wrote his book on gangbanging because he was an expert on gangbanging. He knew where a gang started. He knew the purpose of it. Things that I had no clue about when it came down to gangbanging. But when it came down to selling drugs, I was a drug expert.
Right.
You know, I knew why young people started selling drugs. I knew how to sell it. I knew how to take any kid on the street that would listen and make him a millionaire. When it came down to selling drugs, I knew what the prices of a key of cocaine was in Detroit, Chicago. I basically had educated myself in the drug business.
Right.
The other thing that I found out is that with the education of the business is what allowed me to generate the kind of money that I started to generate. Most guys don't make the kind of money I made because they're not educated in the business. They haven't sit down, thought out what it is that they're doing, and even though I couldn't read, I was functionally illiterate, I could still do some critical thinking.
Correct. How do you feel about the hip hop industry that is glorifying your names and a lot of iconic former drug dealer names out here and getting money off your names? How do you feel about that?
You know, I look at these guys and I know what they're doing to our young people because I was a victim of the same thing. I was a victim of the Superfly era. You know, when I went to the movies and saw Superfly, Arthur Ashe was my hero.
Right.
But in the back of my mind, Superfly had became my hero. So the rappers now have become our kids' heroes. And I was the rapper's hero. I was the guy that the rappers looked up to. You look at most black kids, and their first hero is usually a drug dealer. The first